this wouldn't be so difficult for us, but it has proven to be. So just give us a moment while we check on this.
How about now? I think I did it.
I think you did it.
Great.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Great job, Josh. Thank you.
Do you want to do
You're the hero
again?
Yeah.
Just in
yes.
case.
I'll do another intro for those who are on YouTube who didn't see it. So I'm Jessica Levesque. I'm the executive director here at C4, and I'm really excited to be here. This is our first live Ask Anything event, and it's about our CEP, Certified Ethereum Professional. This is a new exam. It's been out for about a month. And we have 2 out of our 4 committee members here with us today. Joshua McDougall, he's also on our board. Say hello, Josh.
Hi.
You guys missed it when we did this earlier. We're refilming it again because we had some technical difficulties. But Josh demonstrated he did a fashion show of his shirt. So Josh, can we have you show your C4 shirt again? It's quite snazzy. We're very proud. Thank you. Okay. And then we have Cheyenne Eskandari here with us. He is our CEP chair.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. And then we also have 2 other committee members that were unable to join us today. Stefan Beyer and Andrew Warshaver are also committee members. So let's get started. You guys are all here to talk about the CEP exam and what is on it, what's it about. We've got some questions on Slido. If you don't have the code, go to slido.com and the code is Ask Anything CEP. And we also are on Reddit and you can ask questions in the chats as well. So let's get started with the first question that we have here. And let's see. The first question, which I think is a great one, is who is C4 and why should I trust you?
Wrong question. My bad. I'll find it.
Okay, well, the first question may be something else. Josh, do you want to bring up a different question?
No, but I really like that question. So once we find it, there it is. We were one off. So who is C4 and why should I trust you? And that is a great question because, of course, the crypto world is, in as much about not trusting people as it is about trusting people. So who are we? C4 was formed back in 2014, believe it or not, out of a necessity and appreciation that although a lot of us who had been in the space kind of knew what questions to ask when trying to hire someone or trying to work with someone, we were worried that there would be hiring managers out there who, were just given the task, we'll find someone who understands what a blockchain is or what Bitcoin is or, years later what Ethereum is. And they wouldn't really have the right tool set to find people. So we created C4 to kind of fill that gap, but we did it most importantly as a nonprofit. This is a volunteer-led organization. And it's not just about, the 2 founders that started it. It's a constant community effort to set these benchmarks using as much input as possible from the community. So C4 just tries to really curate that information into a way and be the custodian of these exams in a way that keeps their strengths and keeps their difficulty levels at appropriate spaces, while being a neutral party in the space. We don't try and sway one specific direction or the other. We just want to be here, provide the actual benchmarks and make sure that the testing process is there. Now we also do we have other initiatives in the space too, especially around education lately. We've hosted a number of conferences which are focused on training. And again, we take that same kind of mindset of, we want to be neutral parties, but we want to make sure that we just offer the absolute best technical expertise to our users and to our customers. So it's a little bit of who C4 is. I'm happy to go into far more about C4, but we're here on the CEP. So I think that's pretty good for now.
Okay. Anything else anyone wants to add, Cheyenne?
Yeah, I just want to in addition to what Josh said, like I remember, like a lot of people have seen this recently with the recent bull run that there are so many blockchain experts popping up on LinkedIn, like other social media, and we've seen this before with Bitcoin. I remember back in 2015 or 16, there were like so many Bitcoin experts on LinkedIn, and one reason CBP was shined to me and was like, this is really good, was exactly a minimum certification, not really necessarily don't need to know coding or anything to be able to have a certificate say, I know basics of Bitcoin and here's the proof. And that was pretty valuable in that sense because you can't fake something that everyone can verify.
Yeah,
it's great to hear
absolutely.
from an originally outsider's perspective that it was, a nice benchmark to find. We definitely had issues. We were running a small consultancy company at the time, and we were trying to hire Bitcoin professionals because it was 2014. We were trying to hire lawyers, we were trying to hire accountants, programmers, and they'd all be like, "Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about." So that untraceable, anonymous criminal money, and it's like, well, okay, that's the that's the marketing speak or the media speak, but that's not the reality of what these are. So again, we were able to ask the right questions, but we wanted to give that tool. We wanted to give other professionals a tool set to find the right people. Otherwise, it was going to be an issue with them hiring bad people and their projects going south, getting a bad taste in their mouth, and the industry not moving forward because of that.
Okay, great. So let's see here. Let's jump into the next question, which is why would someone need this certification? So
I don't know.
Let's talk a little bit about why the CEP is important and what we think about it. Cheyenne, do you want to start?
Sure, yes. So just some background on this. So we started CEP, I think, a year and a half ago, and we started the talks, and maybe even longer. But so we started like coming up with like what is needed to know, like to figure out if someone knows Ethereum or not, or is blockchain in that sense. And it was really hard to have the scope, because especially as you may know, Ethereum is fast-paced and changes a lot. And we had to like make sure we don't name projects that in a year or two might be irrelevant, or some technical details that might change. We still have some challenges about gas and how the concepts are changing. But we tried in the last year, with the help of all the committee, to come up with these questions that are fundamental to understanding Ethereum and blockchain. So this exam, I think I'm kind of answering some of the questions that I read, but this exam is not necessarily technical, but you have to know some basic details and some fundamental differences of like what Ethereum is versus Bitcoin or traditional software or exchanges or other things. And I think based on the feedback we got from the exam too, if you pass this exam, which is much harder than CBP, the Certified Bitcoin Professional, which I'm happy about, but that means that you have some basic knowledge of everything about Ethereum. So you don't have to be a programmer. You can be, as Josh was saying, like accountant or lawyer, some people that must know the underlying technology that they want to have opinions on. So this would help a lot with that. Even just studying for this would make you much more knowledgeable about the field.
Yeah, I mean, even in my day job, I'm a investigator, doing digital forensics and helping kind of fight private sector crime and a lot of cases lately helping to trace different assets and try and return assets to the rightful owners. And in my line of work, sometimes you end up in front of a judge and you need to be able to explain the series of events that took place and how you came to those conclusions. And the judge is always going to look for credentials to ask, why is this person in my courtroom? Why are they talking to me? And from that perspective, the CEP, the CBP, all these different certifications just help lend credibility to, who's standing up in this professional setting, this important setting, to say, hey, I'm here and, this is the story, this is a series of events. On the other side of things, I know quite a few businesses in the space who are constantly trying to hire, especially in these crazy bull run times. Um, and finding new people is extremely difficult, and you know, a lot of them are willing to train on staff, or to train new hires, just to get them up to speed to fit these roles, be them programmers who, you know, don't really have the expertise, or support staff, or those accountants and legal representatives. Why did my computer just die?
Well, everything's working.
Great, still going. So, you know, having that was frustrating. Have again the being able to go into job interviews with that credential, and just so, okay, you know what, I already know, like, I'm there. Let's hit the ground running. That's gonna definitely excite a lot of employers out there who are looking to fill these roles and ship products.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go from that question, and this is related. So where would this certification be of most use in a job setting?
I can try to answer that, and Josh add anything at the end. So as Josh was saying, like, the scenario that we aim for are mainly get the hiring process, or basically a resume, similar to like a lot of security certifications back in the last 2 decades. And they were mainly to like prove that you know the basics and like the processes and all the like fundamental details to get hired. If you're coming from like security industry, you have seen like all these like ethical hackers or all other certifications, which if you are actually a professional in the field and you would read the exam material, you see like a lot more pretty simple and like common sense in the security field. But it's just like you need to know them to have the running ground to like start that job. So the idea for CEP and CPP is like, if you get this certificate, you have the basic knowledge to get hired. And also, on the other hand, recruiters or companies that want to hire any role, like as I said, this is not about the Ethereum developers and Solidity developers. It's like basic knowledge and fundamental of Ethereum. So if you want to hire, that would be a good example to say you need to get this certificate to start the hiring process or to start the interview process. You can remove a lot of unnecessary questions and interviews, and maybe even errors in the process, to know that that person has some knowledge on this field, and then go through your business model or some of the applications that you want to work on.
Yeah, I mean, a large focus of the exams, and both exams, the Certified Ethereum Professional and the Certified Bitcoin Professional, is, you know, how do you use this technology safely? And that's, you know, as we see, again, going back to my job, just investigations every day about, you know, things that have gone wrong, and it's not always malicious. Sometimes it's purely accidental. This technology can be difficult still. You know, we're still working on user experience. We're still working on easy to use interfaces and common sense defaults that just aren't common sense yet. So using or earning this cert shows that you not only, you know, can use the technology, but you understand it at a level that you can use it in a way that's safe, and you understand backing up those keys and you know what there is to back up, and you understand how to interact with the different DeFi applications out there that are, you know, so immensely valuable but difficult still at times, and you know, even when they are easy, you still have to appreciate, you know, what kind of gas situation am I getting into by interacting with this, and what is that going to cost me, and those are fundamental details that, you know, businesses out there are looking for assistance on, and you know, this cert again gives you that, like, hey, here, I have this knowledge, you know, let me at it. Let's do some good work together.
Okay, great. I'm just, so you know, Josh and Cheyenne, I'm adding extra questions because they're still coming in on the other channels as well. Great. So the next question, and this was one of mine as well when I first got into crypto, do I have to be a programmer And so this person's saying they don't know Solidity. Don't worry, I don't either. So someone who does know Solidity, Cheyenne, do you want to talk a little bit about the exam? And you are a programmer, but what about the rest of us?
Sure. So no, you don't have to be a Solidity developer for this exam. But the main thing is, so that was one of the challenges we had on defining the questions and how deep we should go. And because we aimed to have the certificate as a general professional, like general profession in Ethereum can get the certificate, you don't have to know programming. There are some questions about like how Ethereum works, like Ethereum virtual machine works, which you need to know. Like, so in this whole AMA, we might leak some questions and answers, which is good in some sense. So one of them I've seen even in like academic papers that were like peer reviewed, and it's really common that people say these smart contracts can automatically run something. So that is a fundamentally like a wrong assumption. Like smart contract cannot just run something. Someone should run them and pay the gas. So you need to know this to be able to answer a lot of questions, and you need to know this in order to think Ethereum, think blockchain. Because other than that, it's just doesn't automatically work. There are some other concepts about what gas is, what is needed, how do you even run a function on a smart contract, not the coding, just the concept of you need to call the function and like these kind of details. So you need to know some of this stuff, which if you read something like Mastering Ethereum, you even know more than enough, because the second half of the book is pretty technical. So in short, you don't need to be a Solidity developer, but you need to know how EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine, and Solidity in general works. Josh, if you want to add anything on top on this.
We actually the first initiative with Ethereum that we wanted to do back in 2016 was the Certified Ethereum Developer certification. So we wanted to make a very technical developer focused certification. And there was two issues with that mainly. One, that certainly it's good to have, developers trained and understanding all the different technical limitations or gotchas of the EVM. It can be an interesting experience. But it's such a fast moving, ever evolving system that even keeping that type of certificate relevant is extremely difficult, and the exam process would be potentially very difficult too. Do you add examples? Do you add like coding challenges? Is there, for a volunteer run organization, how do we create the infrastructure to even verify such a thing? So we tabled that and thought, we wanted also to just have a much broader reach. We wanted more to make sure that, sure, developers need to understand Solidity, but they need to understand so much more than that. They need to understand those concepts that Cheyenne was just talking about, as far as, just how do we interact with Ethereum, again, in a way that's safe, and it's a way that's efficient and meaningful. And that same skill set was the same for a developer, dealing with test funds or understanding how their users are going to interact with them, as it is the accountants, the lawyers understanding what this technology is capable of, and the requirements for reporting, and the support staff out there. A lot of times in the crypto industry, support staff for companies aren't support staff for that exchange. They're not support staff for this particular business. They end up being support staff for the crypto ecosystem. And being able to actually understand Ethereum and use it properly isn't just about, using that particular service right. It's about understanding the entire kind of ecosystem there. So that's, it's, although it is a technical exam, in that it's certainly, it's about Ethereum, and Ethereum can be a technical concept. We definitely think that this exam, with enough studying, can be done by all members of an organization, people across all levels, all ages, everything. So we hope that's correct, but we do also always welcome feedback.
Yeah, I want to add two things to what you mentioned. So you're right about So I worked with this guideline. A lot of people that work in this field, they know about like best practice, Ethereum development best practices or security best practices. If you Google that page was really, like, got really a lot of citations. I think more than like 5,000 stars on GitHub. And we tried till like Solidity 5, to try to keep it like daily up to date. Like it was really hard because you had to have like attacks and common vulnerabilities. And when the new Solidity compiler came in and new bugs, especially with DeFi, came in, it was almost impossible to keep that up to date, because what would you add there as best practices if some of them are not really well defined, like we all like seeing them in action. And it kind of reminds me of like, I think Josh, you told me about this story that when you were working at Certified Ethereum Developer, you were about to announce it, and then the DAO hack happened. Mm-hmm. And no one in the industry, no one knew about green Trinity attack. That was a new concept. And I remember you were saying, like, do we want to put this certificate out there when it doesn't even cover the biggest hack in the industry? Those are the challenges of like actually coding details. And even for teaching Solidity developers, like Solidity as to anyone, you can't say if you take this course, you'll know everything, you can start working with DeFi. You'll have like a basic knowledge of being able to read the code, connect things together, but it's still a daily research and daily job to figure out what is next and what's coming out.
Yeah. As much as that was the DAO story you just told was very frustrating at the time for so many reasons for us. We'd put a lot of effort and a lot of our limited, nonprofit organization resources into getting the certified Ethereum developer ready. But one thing that's very important about C4 is we don't release things unless we think they're helpful to the space. We're not a cash cow. We're not just trying to milk the industry out of funds who, conning people into taking an exam and running away with the money. We work tirelessly on something until it's at that standard that we like, and then we release it. And the certified Ethereum developer was something we worked very hard on, and we couldn't get it to that standard, and we decided just not to release it. The Certified Ethereum Professional that we're talking about here today, we've worked on this for over a year and a half, if not longer. It was, I think the committee formed at our 2019 Bitcoin blockchain training conference.
August 2019, it was the first meeting.
So as far as, going back to that first question, why trust C4? The only thing C4 exists to do is release high quality stuff. And we get some flack sometimes because it's slow. But this is one of those examples where we're finally able to deliver, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are wondering now that we have the exam available, how hard is the test, and what do I need to study to pass? And so while you two are answering that, I'm going to be putting a link to our study guide in the chat so that people are able to check that out.
Excellent. The Certified Ethereum Professional is 75 questions, and you have 20 minutes to take it. And it's all either multiple choice or true or false. But it's a very limited time frame to answer all those questions. So you don't have a lot of time to go and Google for answers. So you're in a bit of a time crunch in order to get things done. The content itself ranges everywhere from, kind of the history of Ethereum and large events like that DAO attack, when it was released, when it was conceptualized, as well as future development. Where is it going? What's happening with proof of stake and things of that nature? There is a lot of concepts around just how to manage your wallets and your keys and understanding that. I think some of the more difficult questions, and these are in the Certified Bitcoin Professional as well, are around key management. And not even that, but a little bit of core cryptography knowledge as well. So what is a digital signature? What is the difference between encrypting, decrypting, signing? What are all these different things used for? How are they used in the concepts of Ethereum? How is a transaction built? I think another difficult concept might just be around gas, just because it's kind of a convoluted concept in Ethereum. There's all at a core infrastructure level, there's really weird field names or non-descriptive field names that all kind of come together, and understanding how those all work with each other allows you to be successful on the network. But it's certainly something that you'll need to read up on if you haven't worked too closely.
Yeah, and I'll also say that if you're already a CBP, a lot of what you need to know about cryptography and centralized ledgers and the functions of currency and decentralization, hash functions, things like that are on the CBP. A lot of that information is also relevant to the CEP. So there is kind of a sliding scale of, if you're a CBP, you have some of the information already that you need for the CEP. But another question was, in terms of difficulty, is the CEP more or less difficult than the CBP, and how are they comparable? So that's one way. And so does one of you want to take on a little bit more about the differences between the CEP and the CBP?
Yeah, I can try. So, because I recently went through, basically shadowed someone that was taking CBP, and it was interesting to see that. So you could see that, like, when you want to talk about like Bitcoin to someone that never heard of anything on blockchain, a lot of concepts are like, oh, you have this bank, but you don't need this bank for money. Like, a lot of concepts are like really fundamental of how people think what money is, what are institutes, what are the power of like decentral network. So CBP is focused on a lot of those nature of fundamental of what money and value is, which a lot of them are removed from like the CEP, because that is not exactly what Ethereum is about in that sense. I don't want to say Bitcoin or Ethereum, like I'm not comparing these, I'm talking about these exams. And you could see that for someone that has been in this field or has been reading, CBP is much easier because they have already spent some time thinking about those concepts. Same as like if someone doesn't know anything about, if you want to talk about like gas, it's impossible to even explain what is that, who you're paying this gas to. So I would say CEP is for someone that has been more exposed. If you're really afraid of like taking a hard exam, maybe you start with CBP. It's also still valuable if you could say like, I'm a Bitcoin and Ethereum professional. So CBP is easier in that sense for people that have been in the field or have been reading about this. If you're pretty new to everything, maybe you should read about like what blockchains, why blockchain is important in that sense, not any specific blockchain, why the technology is important, or why decentralization matters. Those could be useful, and that's the main difference. And also Ethereum has more layers to it. Like DeFi adds a lot of layers to it, which we tried not to go into details of any projects, but there are some questions about like liquidity and like some other stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I think, Cheyenne, you had a good point there with the CBP being more of an entry-level exam, and the content on it is something that if you don't understand about cryptography and some of the basics, then if the Ethereum exam is definitely something that you need to study a lot more for. And many people take the CBP first, and we have a CBP exam prep book, and that's on our website. And then we have a CBP exam prep course, and that's on Udemy, and that goes through a lot of the basics with cryptography and digital signatures, hash functions, all of that. And so for some people, if you're just being introduced to crypto, Bitcoin can be an easier place to start. But if you already have the background of this, then Ethereum is a place that is definitely okay to start if you have the prerequisite knowledge. Okay, so we have another question that's related to the difficulty of the exam. So someone says, I took the exam, the CEP, and I did not pass. The exam had a large part of the questions in asking instructions in Solidity language. Why does this happen? My experience was totally different with the Bitcoin exam, which I passed without a problem and on the first try. So we talked a little bit about how it is a more difficult exam. Any follow-up, Cheyenne or Josh, about this?
I think so. that goes to the point. I'm aware some of the questions might be a bit more technical, but those are there for anyone that wants to pass the exam with like full score. And also, we've noticed that like CBP has, Josh, correct me on these numbers, it's like 90% pass rate, and Ethereum CEP has like around 50, which I'm happy about this result because it's much harder like to get into, to know all the knowledge, and we try to have cover all the parts of the technology from like fundamentals, basic cryptography to the actual solidity, and not the code, like the concept. So you need to know about solidity as like the main fundamentals to call yourself a Ethereum professional. So that's one of the reasons. And but in comparison to the CBP, you don't really need to know how the transaction is created, or because it's just simple transaction. You don't do function call, you don't do any other smart contract details, not getting into the taproot and stuff recently coming out. But like anything that is there is much simpler technology. So the exam is more complicated as well.
Right, it makes sense. It follows along with the level of complexity within Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Okay.
Yeah, but if to add into that, if you did the exam and there were questions that was like super weird, just feel free to reach out to us, and we would love to get more feedback on all these questions and exams.
Yes, absolutely. We welcome feedback. I mean, this is an exam created by individuals, by people, and our committee, while wonderful, like anything else, isn't perfect. And while we spent a really long time working on the exam and did our best, there are hundreds of questions in the exam pool and hundreds of answers. So if there are questions or answers that when you take the exam you don't think make sense, or you're confused or something like that, you can always reach out to us on socials or info@cryptoconsortium.org as well, because we do believe in constant improvement. And like Josh said at the beginning of this event, we really are here for the industry and trying to make these exams valuable. I think they already are valuable, and we want to increase that. And part of that is working with the community to make them the best that they can be.
Yeah, and I think going into a little bit of context as to how we create these exams might be helpful as well. Basically, our committee works to just write as many questions as we can, and all the research and review that goes along with that process, and then we end up doing a couple different passes over questions repeatedly, eventually kind of bubbling them up into the actual exam. Now, when we create the actual exam from the question pool, what we're doing is we're taking all of our different topics that are listed in that study guide, and we're kind of pooling and saying, okay, we know these 20 questions in our database have to do with backups. Well, we want to pull, say, 5 of those questions and present them to 5 randomly and present them for the exam. Or we want to talk about, or there's some of those like really kind of nitty gritty crypto questions, or cryptography questions, or nitty gritty kind of solidity details, but we're not asking you to write solidity. But it's a hard question, and I appreciate that. And we still we look at the ratio and say, okay, we want to take of our 30 questions of these, we want to present 2 to the user and see how they deal with that. So that ratio of the different sections and how we pull questions and how that's weighted in the exam is something we're continuously working on. So we very much appreciate that feedback, and we'll go and take a look at all the statistics that we've currently captured to this moment and see, and does that ratio need to change? It's possible. It's 100% possible. Or it's possible that there's a question with an error, and we want to narrow down and find that. So this is an ever evolving system. We haven't released it and it's done, because these systems, be it Bitcoin or Ethereum, are constantly evolving every day, which is exciting. Very difficult to write a test for, but that's why we've actually developed a platform specifically for curating exams collaboratively amongst our committees, and hoping one day amongst the community completely as well.
Yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about CrowdQ, Josh, and explain what that is and how we're currently using it and how we want to use it in the future?
Sure. So CrowdQ is that exact platform I was just talking about. It's a collaborative platform where it's kind of like the opposite of Stack Overflow, where someone proposes a question and answer, and other members of the platform can review that, can propose changes to the question, or can copy the question and rewrite it a completely different way, or discuss certain things. There might be some technical details that are either up for discussion or maybe ambiguous in it. So it's just this collaborative platform for creating questions, which then allows us to then actually form the exam around all those questions and moderate those questions through the process. We're not quite
And eventually we're hoping to have more involvement with the community for the exams as well. And so that's something we're working on. This is a homegrown platform that is unique to C4. So like Josh said at the beginning, sometimes our projects take a little longer than we originally anticipate. And this is one of those, but so we are using it. That's the platform the exam's on, but we're also moving towards a more collaborative community environment and process.
Such a common question we get at C4 is, how can I help? And with our original, when we first wrote the CBP, it was literally just an Excel file that we passed around or sat in a room and worked on together. And that just didn't scale very well. So we needed something that would be improvement. Now with this platform, our ultimate goal is to be able to say to those people that want to help, please go and write questions into the platform, and then they'll just go through the moderation process and the community can discuss them all together. And this also goes back to one of my original statements about what is C4. And C4 is an attempt to just curate the community's knowledge, curate the community's beliefs into an exam. So we're hoping CrowdQ really helps us to kind of take that to the next step. So it's sure, we'll always have committees to really help and curate and make sure that the level is where we're at and where we require for C4. But the more and more that we can put these into the community's hands, I think the better overall the exam will be. So that's something we're definitely looking forward to, and we hope to open up the CEP in CrowdQ for all CEP members to go in and provide their new questions as they want.
Okay, this next question is a little different than what we've been talking about. Okay, if we are interested in the public policy side of crypto, do you see this certification as a useful tool to stand out? What about Bitcoin certifications? And this is from Wes from Decentraland.
You want to hit this one first, Cheyenne?
Sure. So it's an interesting question because I'm thinking that I work with a lot of regulatory parties in Montreal and Canada overall, and just having the concept of exactly the example I used, like smart contracts automatically running something. Just knowing that that is not the way the technology works helps a lot in understanding how a policy should be set to work with that. Let's say, because there is a lot of new concepts in this technology that might not fit in the regulatory frameworks, as if let's say if a market needs to be liquidated or something happens, and if someone calls that function, even if they're not profiting from this, would they be responsible for the money transfer? All those things, you need to know that the smart contract doesn't automatically do that. Someone's calling this, and what's the incentive? And all those helps understanding how to set the policies to work through this. So this is more I'm more saying about the CEP, because there are so many of these nitty-gritty stuff that are important in general policy. For CBP, it's a bit different because it's more about understanding what Bitcoin is and how CEP has this more mental of I don't want to say anti-government, but it has this anti-institutes, in the sense that the questions are if any institute can block your transactions, yes or no. and these kind of questions, which help understanding the general thing. But CEP has more details that, if you understand the technology, it can help coming up with better policies that are more relevant, and they won't just expire within 6 months. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean that's all extremely accurate. Um, I get to deal with a lot of regulators too, and a lot of them are constantly saying like, "Hey, we want to learn. We want to know about this new thing that you're doing. We want to know about this new potential service, and we want to write policies that are informed." They don't want to put laws into place that stifle innovation. They don't want to put laws into place that hinder financial privacy, as long as it's not also getting in the way of fighting crime. Like they want to find this balance a lot of the times. At least I haven't met a regulator who just like hates the space for the sake of hating the space. So I think again, having the credential looks good because it gives some clout to say, okay, I'm making these decisions for this reason. And I roughly understand what I'm talking about. But I think just going through the process helps you to verify that your understanding of things is correct as well. Just personally, that way you can go into your work with far more confidence and confidence that you're gonna be making decisions that matter in this space. You're gonna be making decisions that will change how businesses are able to function, how individuals are able to function within your specific borders and around the world. And there's certainly a lot of responsibility that goes along with that. And I think doing your part to make sure you're well informed is a pretty easy step as far as writing a 20-minute exam and seeing how you do to drastically oversimplify the CEP.
Okay, so another question is, how many CEPs so far and how many CBPs to date? Any notables like Andreas?
Andreas is on there. Vitalik was on the original group of people that helped put the CBP together back in 2014, while he was still, conceptualizing what Ethereum was at the time. So he was actually a board member of C4 for a while. He's since stepped down because he just doesn't have time for it. But that's certainly as far as the CEP goes, Vitalik has always been very close to our organization, and we've always been grateful for that. Other interesting people. I'm a CVP at CEP.
Yes, they're all asking about you, Josh.
Yeah. No one has any idea. Yeah, that's cool. The CBP, thousands. But it's been around since 2014, and we have noticed that as people get excited about Bitcoin, the number of CBPs go up. And then as people get less excited about Bitcoin, less people are taking the exam. That's just how the markets and excitement around crypto work. CEP is very new, and I think we have maybe double digits, but we're looking. I think the Ethereum space is just so exciting that I think it's a great fit. What I assume is happening is there's a lot of people studying up for it, because it's requires that kind of level of commitment. So I think
it's a more difficult exam. It's taking people a little bit longer to study for it to be able to take it. In terms of notables, all of the committee members obviously have taken the exam and passed it. Also, in terms of the CBPs, we had a blockchain training conference in 2019 in Denver, and all of our teachers that were there took the CBP exam. And so if you look at our YouTube and you see the videos from then, every person who taught a class had taken the exam. And in the future, when we hope to do other conferences, it'll be the same thing for anyone who's teaching about Ethereum. They'll need to be a CEP as well. Yeah.
Just want to add something else. So the CEP came out like about a month ago. So even the fact that there are already double digits certificate out there is like fascinating to me. It's because we didn't really do marketing in that sense. And yeah, exactly. I was about to show. So the other thing that you get if you do the CEP, other than verifiable on the website, you get this physical. Like I have my Bitcoin one, but this is like CBP, and I really love it. Like the font and the quality is like pretty like, luxurious. And I think mine is expiring in August, so I have to do the exam again. So to add that detail, the CEP and CBPs both are valid for 2 years. And after 2 years, you have to redo the exam. And that's mainly because of the changes in the ecosystem and the fact that it should be relevant. Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to
add. Also, the next question was, I'm living in Iran. Can I receive the certificate? So we do ship the certificates around the world. Most people don't have any trouble getting them. There have been some issues during the pandemic with people receiving them. Not very many. For the most part, it just takes a little bit longer to get them. But yes, anybody anywhere can take them, take the exams. And if you're taking the CEP and you're in Iran, just expect it to take a little bit longer. But then also the other side to it is while you're waiting for it to come in the mail, or even if you just want it to be virtual, you can go online on our website and you can type in your code to show that you have your certificate. So it's able to be verified online as well.
Yeah, some places are certainly easier to mail to than others. But regardless of the address, we print it out and we put the right postage on and we put it in the mail and we hope it gets there.
You wait for confirmation.
We've part of what's super exciting every week. We print out we do a run of the latest certified people and send them out, and seeing the different countries we mail to every week has always been one of the most exciting parts for me, because it really is a global community and global ecosystem, and it's nice to kind of see that taking shape. I will say another part of that CrowdQ platform that we're working towards is being able to translate our exams. So we fully appreciate that as a 20-minute exam, it's definitely difficult for people who English isn't their first language to be able to, read that question, translate in their mind, and translate the complex concepts of Ethereum, and then answer that question. So that is something we're actively trying to work as well, and using our CrowdQ platform to create those translated versions of the exams that still meet the same kind of criteria. So we're working on that. We thank you for your patience. If you can write the English exam and rock it, we're proud of you. But we appreciate the fact that this is a global ecosystem, and we do want to better serve it.
Someone also asked if they could get their CEP as an NFT. Cheyenne, do you want to talk about this since you've kind of led this discussion on our call?
Sure. Just to add something to Josh's question before jumping on this question. So as someone that also English is not my first language, while doing the exam, we try to not to use any. So we have the jargons or words that are related to Ethereum, which we can't do anything about them, but we try to use write the questions in a way that are not using hard words or things that are hard to understand, and try to simplify the questions that makes that language barrier much less of a challenge or less of a problem. For the NFTs, yeah, we thought about this a lot, and we have some scenarios or proposal solutions to work through. It's possible. We haven't implemented anything yet. It's mainly that there are questions so NFTs are transferable. Should these certificates be transferable or not? We can set this expiry date there as new tokens have those kind of properties, but then what happens to the certificate is expired? these questions, we haven't been able to answer them, because if we give you as a certificate as NFT and you can't transfer them, does that have any value? Like, do you like to have a token that you cannot transfer and you cannot even reject? So there are those questions. If you find good answers for them, yes. If not, it's still verifiable on the website. We can do the similar thing on the blockchain and Ethereum, so you can verify your certificate number on the blockchain. All these are technically possible, not that much work to implement. It's just like the details around them. We should figure out what that means.
C4 has to adhere to the GDPR requirement of right to be forgotten. So we do receive requests to say, hey, delete everything you know about me, including your test results, including whether or not you failed or passed any exams, all your personal information. You can ask us at any time. I don't want you to have that anymore. Delete it. And, we're happy to comply with that, because that's, we believe in the spirit of those laws. So when it comes to, blockchain-based certs, that becomes really difficult with a immutable ledger as well. So it's something obviously we care about this space, and we care about the ethos, and we want to use this technology wherever possible. But that's just always been a really difficult one for us to find, to kind of find a balance in. So we're looking at it. It goes back to C4 does things that are cool, but really slowly. So, maybe we'll find that right solution that fits it. Maybe we'll, start an initiative, or we'll get lucky and there'll be a hackathon team that just wants to crush something amazing out in a weekend for us, and we love it, and we can use it. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, next question. Is CEP the right cert for someone who wants to architect enterprise solutions on the Ethereum blockchain? In percentage, how much of the course is focused on the tech side? And I think by course, they mean exam.
I mean, I would certainly say it's important.
Tech part of it.
Yeah, I would certainly say it would help, mainly because, a lot of it is about key management and interacting with things safely. So if you're architecting this system, and it's not just about what you need to know to do it, which is still important. How do you deploy these systems? How do you deploy, a smart contract in a way that's safe and appropriate? How do you interact with other smart contracts and have all that interoperability between them? Again, going back to gas, how do you fund this situation? How do you actually power it? But then understanding it from your user's perspective. How is your user expected to back things up? How is your user expected to, say, transfer? Maybe they got a new computer and they don't understand, what to move over. Well, are you architecting your system in a way that's going to facilitate their movement, simply? You're going to have to understand from their perspective, what are their best practices that they have in mind, and or what should they be doing that they might not be thinking of whatsoever. So I think from that perspective, the CEP would be an extremely valuable certification to attain.
Yeah, and to add something there, so the CEP would help, as Josh said, like, to have the confidence that you know what you're talking about. But to architect that, you need to know a lot of like details, that the questions are there. It's also because it's randomly chosen from the bank of questions, like pool of questions. You might not get those exact questions that you need the answers to architect something like that. But you need to know a lot more on the details around. But the CEP for sure would be a good like stamp of approval, as like, I know the basics to start doing this and architect some system on Ethereum.
Okay, we've got some more questions. We're going to try to run through these a little bit quicker so that we don't take up too much more of your time. I know it's almost noon. So first one, there are more or less 33 topics to study the CEP. In the exam I took, there were only no more than 10 topics appeared. Why?
So
I'm one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I want to say, like, so if you look at the study guide, there are 10 main topics, and there are like subtopics, which the 33 is all the subtopics and all the general topics. but the questions just use the header of basically the parent topic, the main topic. And that's why probably this is, but it's interesting that they looked like they counted that and like they don't notice that.
I'm impressed.
But yeah, especially like the showing the topic on the question is a new thing. We're doing a CEP. On CBP it doesn't exist, and we noticed that's really helpful for the user or the person that is taking the exam to navigate through the mind, to know what to think about the question. But interesting.
And it's difficult to list those sub ones because sometimes a question will kind of actually very often a question spans several different topics even. But we might pull in to say, okay, this is mostly about backup keys, so we're going to focus it there. But it might actually be at least in CrowdQ, we might have it as relevant to 4 different topics.
Okay, great. So I'm going to answer a couple of these questions quickly, because one of them, why did the certificates expire? I think we talked about a little bit, just because the industry changes. And so it's important for us to keep up with what's going on and make sure that somebody who is a CEP who takes it now in 5 years is still knowledgeable about Ethereum, and that we can still consider them a professional, because it's valuable to keep up with what's going on in the industry for sure. And the next question is, if there was a third distinct exam to develop, what would C4 offer after BTC and ETH? So we do have a third exam almost. It's called the CCSSA. It's a cryptocurrency security standard auditor. And the questions have been completed, and we are just finalizing some of the last little pieces of it. We have a committee for this as well. It's led by Patrice Basson. There are a number of different members on it: Mike Belshi, Jameson Lott, Michael Perklin. There are a number of different people who are on it. The exam is almost ready to go, so we're hoping to get it out within the next couple months. As I say that, remember, C4 moves a little more slowly than we would like on some of these things, because we are mostly volunteer run. So yeah, that is our third exam, and we're really excited about it.
We are also, so we always welcome, if there's someone who's interested in a certain exam and interested in leading that initiative, we are always open to discussing that. We've had discussions, recently with potential mining-based certificates around power management and heat distribution, legal certificates for the certificates specifically for the legal blockchain industry and how that can help them, accounting, etc. So there's kind of there is a lot that we can do, and we're excited about it. C4 moves slowly, but we do happen to have that third one ready to go. CCSSA is hopefully coming soon. Which, if you haven't seen that base, that's actually another thing that we haven't really discussed. C4 not only does personnel certifications like the CEP and CBP and CCSSA, but we also have an organizational standard called the Cryptocurrency Security Standard. And this is a open source standard available for all to use, be it starting your project and knowing what to cover and knowing how to be secure, or some of the largest exchanges in the world use it to make sure that they're holding custody of their clients' assets in the most safe way possible. So it's an excellent standard. Highly recommend looking it up. And that's what that auditor cert does, is take that standard and gives professionals the ability to go into a business and say, yeah, you meet the requirements of the CCSS. Hopefully then giving consumers the ability to start saying, okay, I can trust this organization because I see that they actually care about how they hold my funds.
And a short addition to that. So about the committees and other certification, also for CEP, if you're interested in helping out and being in the committee, please reach out. You can reach out on Twitter with Learn with C4. I think that's the thing you can see.
Learn more with C4, yeah.
Learn more with C4. And also about the expiration. So the exam that you would take in 2 years would be different than the exam you did today. And the questions are being added. They're modified based on changes in the system. So that's another reason that you need to in 2 years, you need to still know all the knowledge and the new recent trends to be able to pass the exam. So that's one of the reasons in the expiries as well.
But you'll talk about, all the old proof of work system that no longer exists because proof of stake hopefully exists in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, so we're gonna leave it at that for today. We're so grateful that there's so much interest in the exam, and that so many people from the community came out to ask questions and to join us today. If you follow us on socials, you'll see in the next couple days we're going to share a coupon code for the CEP, so that if you could benefit from a discount, you'll be able to grab that. We'll be doing more events in the future as well. So I want to thank you, Cheyenne and Josh, for taking the time to be here today, and thank everyone who joined us on Twitch, on YouTube, asking questions on Slido and Reddit. We really appreciate it. So everyone, have a lovely day, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers.